United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Where's public comments? Anyone have anything? See none, hear none? Okay, move on to approval of minutes.
I'll move to approve, you want to do them together? I'll move to approve the minutes from May 13th and May 20th, 2025.
Okay. Second.
Anyone see anything? Questions, comment? Concern? All in favor to accept the minutes for May 13th and May 20th?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to owners rep. Okay.
So Dan's out today. He had notified me a while ago. They've reached out earlier this week to you guys to let you know, is there anything that you have questions about that you want me to start with before I just go off on a tangent?
Anybody?
The last meeting, we started talking about dates. I know that there's concerns, and I've chatted about concerns of being able to get everybody there on time. We're scheduled to be in on August 18th on the new side. The other side with the alternatives that were added is pushing us back a little bit, which is why we proposed the later start date on the calendar. Got landscaping that's going in the works. Ordering the rubber mulch and things that are going outside. We revamped some stuff that's happening out there. Interior wise, it's moving quickly on the inside of the new build. They started demoing the old build. I had that video that was posted online. It's impressive what people can do in 2 days after Ann's crew stepped up and dominated. It was wild. You'd show up and you just see teachers running, which was also weird, but some of them are a little different than the rest of us, I guess. But sprinting around and packing things out, and everybody was working in unison, and Ann was giving directives on where things were going, and it was a wild, chaotic day. But anyway, so they moved out. They started demo work. They had the floor up almost in its entirety after day one, so things are moving really quickly there. Budget-wise, we're looking good. I know we've got graphics, and graphics are almost done. I haven't heard anything. Dennis is in the room. Do you know if graphics have made the final cut?
I think we should have final stuff here this week.
Perfect. And then I chatted with Zach. Occupancy signs are in the final stages there as well, so we'll be able to get those ordered. The graphics were pulled from Jackson's control to make it to where it fell into the ownership's part. So as soon as graphics are done, graphics can get ordered, and then we're not requiring to have Jackson oversee the subcontractor that's doing the work. In the event, and Zach was still looking at the turnaround numbers for that, in the event that they can complete them as soon as they go through all of the proper channels and they're approved, if they can get it installed on Jackson's timeline, we'll dump it back into Jackson's court and have them oversee it. But
I was going to ask that because I think we need to sit with that schedule we had, and if they can still do it, let them do that and take over, because that was part of it. So
the concern is that it wouldn't. So it made it to where we were having meetings and Jackson kept asking about it. And it was just to streamline the process to be able to get the occupancy signs up so we can occupy the building. That's got to be priority. We need the students to be able to move in. The graphics that are going up, as soon as they're completed, we can either order them ourselves now, or we can pay Jackson to ensure that they're going up at an increase for their services. So that's something we could explore. But regardless, that's a change and has been a conversation point. We're exploring options for what it would cost. I was approached to see what the additional cost would be to move irrigation out to where the Jackson trailer is currently sitting, and that's not provided by the school district, but outside funding, so that in the future we could have softball that direction. I don't have the numbers on that yet, but they're working on those numbers. More so that we don't have to tear up ground in the future, the track, the fencing, whatever is outside for debris. So we're looking at that. And then what did I miss? Think of anything? Mrs. Tanner? The wood ceiling looks beautiful. Definitely would recommend seeing that. Dan's new front office is pretty spectacular.
Could
I have
we
not
maybe
heard.
set up a walkthrough next month or something?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I don't know,
like
it's
that.
easier before.
If we go after 5, we don't have to wear hard hats either.
Okay.
Just keep that in mind.
Maybe
Yeah.
after or whatever.
Conclude the meeting over there. Yeah. Conclude it. Got it. Anything else that you?
So why is the discussion on the graphics so much? I mean, why was it an issue, or just questioning, like, why were we trying to pull it, or trying to, because of timeline, or?
Yes, so this conversations from Jackson started back in December on where we were at with the graphics. The graphics was tied to occupancy signage. Those two are in the same unit. In the event that everything does get approved and moving forward, it could easily be on that timeline. But because it's been requested since December and we have subcommittee meetings that are meeting and making sure that the language is appropriate and what language is going on the wall and what's going where, there was a concern that we would be not able to order the occupancy signs. And then we would have to pay Jackson to put up temporary occupancy signs and then remove the occupancy signs and then put up the new occupancy signs. So we'd be paying them for double the work. I didn't see any value in that, so I guess that was something that was kind of discussed in the OAC meetings over there. And if we could remove that portion and they could order the occupancy signs to get people in and out of the building, and we could get our students over there, let's get those occupancy signs ordered as quickly as possible. Mrs. Tanner asked a great question at the last meeting. Have they been ordered? Nope. Okay, well, my understanding was we separated them at the last meeting so they could be ordered. So if we're fast forwarding a week and you still haven't ordered them, maybe we didn't need to pull it. But what was told to me prior to that was that they were separating them so they could order them. My first build, I've never done one of these. So I look at Dennis to ask if they were done. We still don't have finalized copies of the occupancy signs because they're going through final.
If I remember correctly, the wayfinding signs, which are the building numbers and stuff like that, that's in the graphics court.
Correct.
And we're waiting back for that, right?
That stuff has been approved
Okay.
to the contractor and it has been for some time. There was a couple of pieces they needed to do. Like I said, I don't see any reason why they can't be separated.
Right.
And if they haven't been ordered, that's on Jackson.
But I think Jackson said it was in the graphics. It was in the graphics court, I believe, is what they answered, their answer to that. Well, you weren't there, sorry.
No, but
So I think what happened in that meeting, graphics said yes, Jackson said yes. The actual there was confusion on wayfinding, right? That we always talked about the wayfinding was the graphics on the wall, like you follow the colors. Wayfinding, the way I understand it, the way that the construction people are the ones that are like the numbers and what teacher, right? And so that one, if I understood or remember correctly, has been submitted and gone to graphics.
those have been gone to the subcontractor.
Okay, so as far as we know, it's at Jackson.
Yeah.
Okay,
Those ones, when I talked to Zach today, are submitted for review.
today they were?
Today they were when I spoke with Zach. Which is why they have not been purchased.
Cause we didn't submit today, the stuff we just finalized, right?
No.
That's strange.
Regardless, we want the occupancy signs up as quickly as possible. The graphics are still on the table. We want the graphics. We want a complete, full, finished building. It's just making sure that we can get the kids in September when we get to the calendar and staff in there as quickly as possible.
So I have a question I've been asking for a long time. The snow removal budget has grown, and then according to this, we went $9,000 long on it. Is that what the parentheses mean?
Parentheses are negatives,
That's, yeah,
so we're $8,000 overspent in that.
So we went from $50,000 budget to $63,000 budget. And I just wanted to clarify that that was what was going on.
Yes.
And then I'm concerned, I've asked several questions to Dave. And he seems to not make a whole lot of these meetings, even though he's on the books. And I realize you're not the person who necessarily answer the question, but we've asked for several things to be brought back and reported on. He's never done one single thing that we've asked of him as far as I know. And I would like to know why and where's the follow through. We pay this gentleman and his company quite a bit of money to interface between the contractor and us. And I don't see that he's answering the question. Maybe it's that I'm not on the planning board, but I've asked him questions on camera several times. And I have never seen him answer to any of my questions. And it's getting rather frustrating. I'd like to understand why.
I also did not receive the report that I requested in the last meeting either. I was gonna follow up this week with him, but we aren't getting what we're asking for.
He works for us.
For the school
Let's just
board.
make sure. You didn't want me to reprimand him, I was just verifying where we were.
No.
That's why we're acting, is because he works for us. He is an employee of the school board.
We have paying him 6 figures as far as I know, right? We're paying him a lot of money, not just a little bit of money. And as far as I can tell, he's translating construction terms to us. And it's not even very good construction terms in my opinion.
Maybe from the board standpoint, we need to send, can you as a chair send him an email requesting that information?
I mean, we did during our building committee meeting and we never got anything. And that was May 22nd.
Are you needing me to get you something?
No, Dan needs to get it.
Sounds good.
And I don't know if we owe him money, but as far as I know, that he's not performing his services. And so why are we paying him in full if he's not producing what we're paying him to do? Which at the least he could do is answer questions for us in whatever marketing terms or whatever it is that he is explaining to us. But it would be nice to have at least some kind of, I don't know.
Answers. Answers.
Yeah.
That's all we're asking for is answers or documentation. You know, because we basically asked for a running. Tell me again?
The overall budget.
Yes.
So the one that we have in our report is a broke down. It's not the whole overall picture of the full scheme budget. And there is a document out there and he said he has it and it was not sent.
Would you like me to share that document with you?
No, no, everything's come from Dad.
Okay. Cool.
Brian, can you just ask for board consensus that you can do that email to him?
May I,
Yes.
on everyone's behalf,
Yes.
send the email?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
And very much appreciate, I understand life happens, but there's been a lot of meetings that he hasn't been present on. And we're coming into the end of this. So trying to be as present as he can at our meetings.
Totally good. Okay. Anything else for?
No.
Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
Lonnie, or Corey, either one of you, am I correct that since, Eric Heather is an employee already, that I do not need to abstain, or I do?
You don't, you only need to do that the first time.
Okay.
Are there any changes in the wellness policy or are we just reviewing it?
Just reviewing it, and if anybody saw any changes, the public could have called in, but we're required by law, part of our school foods program, to review that every 3 years.
I didn't see any changes.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if I missed something.
Yeah, no, I didn't have any changes to make, but it has to be reviewed by you guys, so you guys didn't see anything. Okay.
All in favor to approve the consent agenda as is?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to the new business, paraprofessional.
A motion to approve Taryn Ketter as a full-time high school paraprofessional for fiscal year 2026. I second.
Now, does this fall under the same levy or is this different?
I think it's true, the same, I think it's the first time only, and she was hired last year, so I think you're fine. And Sam, you seconded?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any questions? All in favor to approve the paraprofessional hire of Karen Ketter?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to B. Elementary teacher Carrie Shelkey.
I will move to hire Carrie Shelkey, the full-time elementary teacher for fiscal year 2026.
A second.
More questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to C, principal for 9/12 and AD 6/12 for fiscal year 2026, Jacob Bosley.
A motion to approve. A second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. No. Move on to D. Liability insurance renewal.
A motion to approve.
Are there changes to that up, down, sideways?
There was a small increase this year, but this doesn't include the new build. So right now it includes as though you have the 3.6 still. So Corey, I don't know if you want to report on them, you have to.
So at the current moment, Dan is putting together an RFP for the demolition project that would happen with the 3.6 to see if it's within the scope of us. Either it stays or it goes. So if it stays, then that quote has it on there and the new build or not the new build.
So the new build is not on there at all, and it won't go on until it's done.
Correct. That's how that works.
And so,
And then the numbers get goofy depending on where the tear down is, whether or not we're paying in full, or if the tear down doesn't happen, or if it happens at a specific date, how much we have to be prorated on the tear down. So there's some things still out there that as soon as we get the bid process completed, we would be able to finalize those numbers.
we kind of have a short timeline. I think you have to report by the 18th of June to the insurance company, whether or not you're actually gonna tear down that building, or you're gonna have to pay to insure it. And you can't afford to insure both of those buildings. Cause they're your two biggest. So that number would go way up if you had to insure both of these buildings.
But if we're switching one for the other, it should be
It should be,
fairly.
it'll be a little more costly
Yeah.
because that one's bigger, but
Right.
yeah, it'll be doable. If you keep them both open, you're in a pickle.
And even if that isn't being used at all, we still are insuring it because it's.
Well,
on there.
that's kind of what you have to, it could be vandalized, it could be, what do you do? That's your guys' decision, I guess, so, yeah, that's kind of what he has to decide, I guess.
They recommended you can lower the insurance, but they recommended insure your building if it's on your property. More so if someone goes over there to vandalize it and gets hurt on your property, you're gonna want the insurance to cover that.
Yeah,
So that, you guys have to respond by the 18th.
And so
So is that coming from Dan then, or?
I don't know if that's better off at knowing exactly what's in Dan's scope and whether or not I don't know. I know we won't have it all the way completed by the 18th. Working back and forth. I got the wrong name. I got Jeremy in my head. What's his name? Regardless, insurance guy.
The guy,
Being able to see what our extensions can look like.
Matt, Comer.
Matt, thank you. And if we can get the RFP completely written, so they got door access keys this week. They got the ACM report. They've been going through the building. I don't know if they showed up yesterday.
They were here yesterday for about 45 minutes. Kind of walked around, took a look.
And they're reviewing, so he brought in some other specialists that I believe Dan's paying for out of his. Basically, those are people that Dan brought in to be able to complete that, reviewing ACM's. Their report that they provided to you guys and verifying any of the loopholes that they saw where it wasn't explicitly stated. Vermiculite is in this wall, they wanted to verify when it goes to the RFP process that they could say, this is all of the knowns that we have, here's the limited unknowns. And what kind of things we can do in those unknowns to be able to hopefully get a very accurate bid. And whether or not, then afterwards, explore the idea, so I have the budget sheet in the event that Dan doesn't get you to you in a timely manner, so you can make a decision on what you're wanting to do moving forward with that 3-6 building. Okay.
So right now we're saying, yes, we want to renew insurance, but we're not sure exactly what we're insuring at the moment.
Right now, you're insuring the 3-6 building, planning to add in September, when that one's finished, that building. So the insurance will go up, but it'll be prorated. You won't have to pay for the whole year. So that's kind of nice,
And
but
if we
it would
demo that
cost you a pretty
building
penny
during
to
the
do
year, it's
both.
prorated, because we could.
I shouldn't say you can't afford it. It's just a big number.
Right.
And you would probably have to borrow from the high school funds in order to do it.
Thank you.
Any more questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to the Montana Reads grant acceptance.
I will move to accept the Montana Reads grant. One second.
Can you review the grant for us?
You bet.
Thank you.
If you remember a few months ago, I had to sign it so we could submit it.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty big grant, and so what it's covering is, the basis of it is to improve reading instruction, K-12, right? So, yeah, now it's coming back to them, and so it is allowing funds to be able to pay for consultants to bring in more training. And it's gonna work side by side with CRC, right? To bring in more training, like our elementary staff has been working extensively with side by side this year on the science of reading and just kind of honing up our skills and, obviously what we're doing isn't working. So to kind of switch things around and just move the path forward. It's a K-12 system. And so it's also has consultants to work at the upper level. And that one is more focused on identifying and differentiating, right? And a lot of this is system structure and routines, right? We're all doing the same thing. We all have the same ideas. If you would like me to, I don't know, if you have the grant, it's pretty extensive. Part of this grant was I don't even want to say, a percentage of the funds were to go through pre-K, to work collaboratively with the pre-K people. And one of the ways that we are gonna do that, and this is one I'm most excited about, so it sticks in my head, is we're gonna develop like a story hour on Fridays. We don't use our new library on Fridays. Why not allow our littles to come in with their parents, right? And then different teachers will rotate in and out to help do story hour. It also is really big on having kids work K-12 system wide, right? So we're gonna have high school students help develop curriculums, books, packets to go home that are culturally related to also go with the smaller kids, reading buddies, all sorts of things like that. It's about a $1.2 million grant that we worked really hard on. Drea Dale, who's the side-by-side consultant, Marcy Parks, myself, and Deanne. That it was some good reads if you want to read it, but it just basically is, there's a lot of watching. People are gonna come in, make sure we're doing what we say we're doing. I have to leave and attend meetings somewhere, they don't know where, every 6 weeks or something like that to And if I miss them, our funding is out too, or if somebody from the district misses them, like they are taking this extremely, extremely seriously and we were fully funded. Everything we asked for, we received. That is not something that usually happens. The feedback is, I haven't seen it in black and white, so to use Ms. Smith's terms, gossip is, we were the best written grant out there, which is pretty cool. But we also have to keep in mind with the CRC, we have people watching, like the CRC is Department of Ed in Washington, DC. People are watching to see what Arlee does to swing the ship around.
So on the instructional coach, is that someone we're gonna train one of our teachers?
That's what, yeah,
Okay.
that's what we've been doing.
Okay,
So side by side, so like, Melissa Zachariason this last year was our instructional coach, right?
okay,
So Marcy Parks is the more of the elementary consultant for that. So Marcy and Melissa worked side by side on the science of reading, specifically within a 6-step phonics card lesson, right? Because it was hard. Like we can all agree it was hard, right? And so Marcy, the idea then is Marcy Parks trained Melissa, then Melissa went in and helped teachers. And we've all been learning it together, right? And so that, and then Callie is the instructional coach at the upper level.
okay. Any question?
Great job.
My question is what is the side-by-side consulting?
Yeah, they're nationally known educational consulting facility. We're lucky to have them.
Well, that justifies the $20,000.
Well, you have to have it. That's part of the deal. You have to have a consultant to get the grants. Yeah, same. And same thing. And the best part about it though is lack of better words, when I was just the title teacher here, that was my job, right? Data management, making sure people are teaching, putting in the right interventions. That's back when, if you can remember, like 09, 08, 09, 10, we were like the title school of the year, right?
Mhm.
Same thing that's happening to us now. Funding. We have not had what we call tier 2 interventions, which is what we would know as title or chapter 1 in our district for at least 10 years. So there's no net right now. Either you survive in that general ed classroom or you don't survive enough that you qualify for special education. Now, as the K-12 special education director, I can tell you we are qualifying kids who would not qualify if there was a tier 2 intervention. I can guarantee it, right? Because you qualify by that gap becoming too much. There's nobody there to catch them, right? So what side by side has really done to help us, A, establishing what the problem is, B, what tier 2s that we need to put in and who's going to put it in, gathering the data on that. And then also the biggest part of this is they call it the tier 1, which is your general education classroom. We have to change how we're teaching kids in the general education classroom. We have to differentiate our instruction, right? We have to do it differently so this happens again, that gap doesn't happen again, right? So the general education teacher has a system where again, to use these two guys right here, they don't teach whole group. They're not stand and deliver, right? They have a system where everybody's working on something and they move around the room and they address each kid at their needs. We have goal setting for each kid at their needs. And that's what they help with a lot. And just getting us organized and training and I don't know, I don't think we would have gotten off the ground without side by side this year.
Well, you're closing that threshold where there's not as much of it.
We haven't closed it yet. Yeah.
Attending.
They keep telling me you have to go slow to go fast. I'm like, whatever. I'm like jump in the deep end type of kid, right? Like, give me all the tiers. You know what I mean? Give me all the interventions. That's fine. Jerry can figure it out. You can watch a YouTube video.
Well, but there's something to that. It's going slow and going faster at the same time. And there's something about the year, everything we did up to 2008, and it seemed like whatever we were doing in 2008 was the pinnacle, and whatever we can do to get back to that.
Yeah, and if you look back on it, it was strong reading interventions and strong writing interventions. And the writing took care of the phonics. The problem we have now is phonics for a long time, especially at the elementary curriculum level, was not a thing. I can tell you, I was not taught how to teach phonics. So if you're a podcaster, listen to Sold This Story, right? Because it was whole language at that time, right? They taught us if I threw up a thing that said door on the door, eventually Sam would learn how to read that as a door, right? Science of reading is like, yeah, nice try, folks, but look at the data. That didn't work. So now we have to go back and we have to reteach teachers how to teach phonics. I mean, we can do it, but we can't do it to its fidelity. And that's where that comes in. And so when you look at 0708, Carrie Dry had that really strong writing lab. They taught phonics in that lab. It was different than what we're doing now, but there was your phonics piece.
Sure.
Right? And then we had the reading intervention piece. Every first grader, for the most part, got one-on-one instruction. It was a grant that Tammy Elser wrote, one-on-one instruction with a teacher for a half hour a day. Huge. And then we had title on top of that. So really, when I came in, that was all set. So when I came in 05, that was all set. The only thing I noticed is we were struggling with fluency and reading comprehension. That's all I addressed. And then we went. Now, we have kids that can read, but they're spending so much time reading, they're not comprehending. And then we have, so they're decoding a word, like you think, bed's gonna be a bad example, but they're going, the bed, right? By then, I have no clue they read bed, right? They're done, and they're down to the next word. So now we gotta figure out how to teach their brains. They call it orthographical mapping or something like that. I said memorization, I got in trouble 100 times. But they have to figure out how to repattern their brains to where they see the patterns of phonics, to where the reading becomes more fluent. It's honestly really cool.
So
Really
if you
interesting.
still have the consultants there, I would love, I've been working on some research for everyone as far as the correlation between art and music and helping other aspects of it, math and reading.
Mhm.
And so when we're gutting our music and art programs, not only does it have impacts on so many different levels, but it correlates directly to our ability to learn other subjects.
I don't think anybody's gonna argue that.
I have to disagree on the gutting part of it though, using that verbiage, because we're not, we're still offering it and we're strongly still trying to hire music. And so it's not fair to say we're gutting those programs.
I take that back. I meant, we've never really had an emphasis on art or music.
Perfect. That I can agree with that one, but I can't agree with the words gutting.
And I think, and to answer that, I think that's a problem bigger than the local level. I think you take that up the ladder, right? Our state right now is in a surplus. There is money. And the fact that school districts have to cut music and art or have mills to get, to get buildings that are crumbling, to get new buildings that aren't, is a problem. Right? That's not something Mr. Beckham can fix. We only get X amount of dollars. We would have, if we went to blended the CRC and the Montana Reads grants, we would probably be down, in all honesty, reality, 4 FTEs. It shouldn't happen. It should not happen when your state has a surplus. That's where you have to go.
So the traditional models have always kind of failed us. And we are sitting in a very room that was donated to us by one of our community members. His name was Carl Perkins, and he should have a plaque on the outside or the inside or something, because he donated his entire estate to build this room and that room and the bathrooms. And I remember when there wasn't any bathrooms out here and we all had to share that one. We didn't have a home ec and we didn't have a library, it was down there. We have access to resources that we don't even know about. And the reason that happened, and I brought this up to you, Corey, one time, is it was because of a newsletter that Gail Crane was writing at the time. Bless her heart. She was the superintendent and she wrote a community letter saying, what do we need as a community? And Sister Joan took that letter down to a man that was in the hospital dying, and she read that letter to him. And he turned over his entire estate to us. And we're sitting in that room right now. So we don't know where our funding is going to come from. We need to put it out there. And I've asked you to write a letter to our community and we get it out there. We help you get it out there. Every single thing we need that we're not getting help.
Well, I think the thing to remember though, is it is out there. Every school in the state of Montana is underwater. They are striving to stay above water. It is all over the newspapers and the articles. I mean, it is out there. I don't know. I mean, you could talk about how we even got this built, right? Grants, some money from impact aid, and then mills, right? We had to hit the pavement to get it done. And so I think to say we're not out there running it, I mean, we have reached out to community members to get teacherages, because we've lost teachers because housing isn't affordable. There are so many things behind the scenes that we do that nobody sees, but it's no secret that education in the state of Montana is underfunded.
I'm absolutely not critiquing our ability to get. The moonshot that happened to get this room was one letter. And one gentleman read that letter and cared enough about this community to give a $500,000.
Well, you know, as a board member, you could do that as well. I took it upon myself. How much money did I go and ask for donations for, Lonnie?
To get the playground done,
Yeah.
I ended up with about 15 grand.
I was gonna say, yeah, it was over
Brett,
10,000.
I went and got that. No one asked me to. As a board member, you should be willing to do that and go do it. You know, we don't need a letter from these guys. It's not, if it's coming from you, it sounds better.
Sure.
You know, and no one knows that I went out and got those donations from all these places. This is the first time it's become public knowledge, because that's not what I'm looking for.
The other thing to note is our community day is fully funded by donations from the Headwaters grant. Fully funded.
So the person that told me to do that and to watch out for that was Tammy Hills. She said, you know, never know where your funding is gonna come from. So I thought it was rather wise, and I agree with you. And I do everything I can to help support and fundraise. And what I'm saying is, I want to help distribute that letter if we can write. Yeah.
It's almost done. I just had to get through the year. School year just ended.
You've had a full plate. So,
Say what?
you've had a very full plate.
And then some.
Oh, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to the 25, 26, 27 school calendars.
I'll motion to approve. And
June.
I understand the reason of going late for next year's school year, but I'm hoping this is the only year that we have to do that. I understand it's because of the school bill, but I don't feel like as much gets done at the end of the year when you have to end it, so. Unfortunate and a hopefully one-off year. I do love the idea of the one Friday. Sounds like that may be our community day. Is that kind of the idea possibly around it?
I'm not sure if we could have the powwow on that day. That was something that was brought up. And I just said we can be flexible to talk about that. And stuff, whatever that looks like.
So for both calendars, it's the first Friday and the last Friday? Is that what it looks like on the school year?
Or 4 Fridays and 26.
Are we up for discussion? Are we to that point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're,
Oh, okay, that's what we were just.
no, I understand.
Apologies.
Go ahead, Bonnie, go ahead.
Sorry, what was the question now?
Oh, I just said I like the idea of that Friday at the end of the year, and I had heard that there was talk of possibly doing the community day that day for people that work during the weekend. and
Yeah,
have
if that was the kind of the thought too, like if we had to have an extra Friday because we were shortening the school day and everything. Like, would that be something that would be better to actually bring the community in? If they're off on that Friday, we can have more participation with the community. But it was a good part brought up that they just didn't know if we could have the powwow on that day. Like if, like some people wouldn't be available on that Friday versus having them on a Thursday. And I was just like, oh, well, we can discuss as we get closer to and see if that works for everybody. But the community day was just kind of a fun one. And then the high school students could be helping with that and even have like a little bit of their own like field day too, because they miss the elementary like field day. They're like, we want our own. I'm like, well, we can do it all together at once. We're gonna have fun with that.
And how much are we shortening the school day?
we are going from an in time of 3:50 to 3:35.
Our time the same at 7.
Start time 7:50, same time.
Teachers here till 4:15.
Teachers are here till 4:15.
7:30 to 4:15, so that's our contract hours.
In a lot of the meetings that we've had this year, various meetings through the grant work and everything else that's been happening, one of the big points that was continually revisited was not having enough time. Not having enough time to contact parents, not having enough time to meet with one another and basically share your thoughts. When we're done at 4, staff is gathering up their rooms and kicking kids out until 4:08 when they get on the bus, and then taking a breath and getting in their cars and probably gripping the steering wheel and saying, what just happened? We're back at it again tomorrow. So this allows for that. It'll help out with a lot of the training stuff that we're putting in, specifically if Ann's needing to be able to follow up with the CRC and Montana Reads grant. Like, another part of conversation that we've had this year is how can we up communication? That makes it to where we can up communication. So it's huge.
Not only that, that long of a day is not appropriate for young kids. It really isn't.
And we can't run 2 buses.
You can't run 2 buses. Yeah.
So just one question, so why no Fridays? Just, give me a good answer.
So no Fridays, mainly one that, I mean, from even when I started, that's kind of what it's been.
Mhm.
It's built into that Monday through Thursday. That was always, I think, one also a big selling point for a lot of teachers. Just saying that this is why I'm choosing a smaller district. We can have this kind of time. You can have a little bit more balance. I know personally on Fridays, that's like my lesson planning for the next week and getting everything ready, and then I can have a better balance personally, like, and actually have family time on the weekend instead of grading papers and lesson planning for the next weeks and stuff like that. Cause a lot of times most teachers, we find even during our preps, and some, teachers have 5 different preps, classes to prep for, every single day. That one prep time's usually not enough. So a lot of work goes in after hours. Like having that Friday to be able to do that is nice. That way you're actually a little bit more refreshed, actually having that balance. And that and that's to us also just being able to kind of have that balance. And honestly, the more Fridays, I mean, that's just, okay, is that more compensation based on, hourly amounts? Like if you're asking more, like that's an extra day to prep, stuff like that. So just getting into that, if we signed up for a 5-day, school week, and that's, what we've chosen. But when you come into it, kind of finding that 4-day balance, like that's a big selling point for a lot of people. Like it brings really high quality educators further away from cities and other areas that might offer more money. Like they're willing to actually take less by coming to a place that has smaller classroom sizes, 4 days. And every time you would keep adding Fridays and Fridays, but if you don't increase, the pay, you're just asking more and more without compensating, which that might not be what they signed up for. So
So you feel the heat in here?
yeah, I mean, we
So
do
that's
every
what
day.
you're
I'm
gonna
like,
go through it next year, because you're gonna go to school until June 12th.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out.
oh
there.
yeah, no,
Okay.
100%. I mean, I've never had AC in here, and you open up the windows, you turn off the lights, you do what you gotta do. Like, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be hot. Like, but that's just because we're starting later. Like every 5 minutes that we take away from like our school day, which it is better definitely for like little kids and stuff, but every 5 minutes you're gonna add an extra day.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes into. And when people build their schedules already, like every time you're asking for a Friday, I mean, case in point, the first Friday, I'm gonna have to ask like, Mr. Bosley, please, like, I need half of that day off to be able to go see my kid play, their high school sport.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
Can I add to that?
Uh-huh.
That from somebody that also works contractually, I do struggle with the statement of it's more day, that a Friday is more pay. It's not. Because it's then you go less days, right? So there's so many, so I can think historically when we started it was maybe around 156, 158, 162-ish when we started the 4 days. And then we've cut that down. But if you add a Friday, so let's say if you add a Friday, then you take a day off the bottom end, out the back end, right? So you're still working the same contractual days. The reason why, and I can tell you why it got into the CBA, because I was the president that put it in the CBA, is at the time, we had a board that wanted teachers to come every single Friday. Period. We were gonna go to a 4-day school week, but teachers are here every single Friday. And we're like, we're not gonna do that.
Which I don't agree with.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so I guess to me, looking at it, because I work the same days these guys do, or I actually work more. To me, it's not that you owe me more money if I work a Friday, because that means I'm not going into June whatever, right? Because I picked up a Friday in November. To me, it's more of a trust factor. And historically, it's been a trust factor. Let's sit down and collaborate. And I think that anybody that's had kids in this district for years knows that that schedule looks differently, or that calendar looks differently every year. Because we've tried so many options, right? We've tried the first Friday of every month. We've tried, you know what I mean? We've tried,
Fridays after holidays.
Fridays after holidays. We've tried the true 4-day, which is if your Monday was off, you went that Friday, right? And the reason why that has pivoted so much is to make that work within the calendar for everybody. But the key thing was you know, I can remember one time I sat here with Mr. Baldwin and Hughes and, you know, a whole bunch of things. It was one of those times where we just had a wonky calendar and nobody really wanted to start the 15th of August and nobody really wanted to go clear into June, right? And so we were able to sit down and talk about that. But it was something that we started talking about in September, October, November-ish. And so it's just one of those better the deals.
And as a parent, I would rather go a little bit longer than try and guess or try and remember which Friday when I'm making appointments they have. And as a staff member, I know at least in the K2, attendance is pitiful. But you're not teaching,
That
you're
is
not
true
getting,
story.
you're not getting anything done.
Yep.
This is what I was waiting for. I wanted somebody to say that, but you guys wouldn't say that.
Everybody under the bus.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear.
But that is an absolute true story.
That's what I.
But we're
wanted
also
to hear.
realizing Thursday's attendance are terrible.
Yeah.
Monday's attendance are terrible, which is why I brought that up in the last board meeting. We gotta figure something out. And then the high school staff informed me today that there's a whole new law that says we can't punish on attendance, apparently.
But yes, this is what I wanted to hear, because I'm hearing you, it's all me. That's not what we're here for. This is what I want to hear, the kids' attendance. That's what I wanted to know, because every time I asked, no one could give me a direct answer and say the kids' attendance was back. No one would say it, but thank you.
I mean, I don't know the
I would
exact
think-
number, but I can say in
You know,
person.
Yeah, that's my
You
first.
said it,
Yeah.
you said it as a parent and a.
And as a parent, yeah.
So, yes, there you go.
Well, I think a good thing to look at too is we let the primary go that 3 days early. Look at how many people did not come in the intermediate.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right? I can't believe poor Wendy was just like, yes, your kid has to come to school, you know,
Yeah.
yes, your kid has to come to school, right?
Yeah.
And until we change that whole
And,
culture, that school is important,
yeah,
we're not gonna fix it if we're at school on a Friday or if we're at school on a Monday.
yeah, and we knew that was gonna happen when we let that.
Well, I know, yeah, it was one of the top, yeah, right?
Yeah,
But it's more about, how are we gonna hold people accountable to bring them to school?
yeah, but we had to do it. We had to do.
Oh, no, I'm not complaining, no,
Yeah.
actually, I would, if you'd asked me, I'd want you to do it a couple weeks before that, but.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying though is it's a system problem.
Yep.
Attendance is a system problem and we have to figure it out.
Yep. But thank you, Dory. That's what I was waiting for. Okay,
You have the data back that up.
My privilege to get it for.
any more questions, comments? All in favor to accept the 25, 26, 26, 27 school calendars?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to boarding parks, elementary.
So you hit up on the literacy team, that was basically the Montana Reads, huge win, woo woo. And then did the moving out, listen, my K2 staff, I tell you guys this all the time. Are second to nobody. Every single one of our K2 staff showed up and sweated it out and worked together. And And actually, we ended up having a fun day, you know? I mean, there was a couple meltdowns in there, mainly, but it wasn't anything major,
No.
you know what I mean? And, I mean, and worked from, I think I showed up at 6:30 and some people were already in there pounding away until about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And you know, like I said, K2 staff, Kit, of course, volunteered her time, Kurt showed up. And then, of course, the Big Sam's brought Indian tacos and then they ate so much of it that none of us got them. So, right?
No, the staff got
The
it.
staff got
The staff got
it.
it,
So,
not the big
so
staff.
Brian and Dennis, about 3 other people came and they were gonna eat with us. Well, we went to take the tour and we came back and it was gone. It was wiped out. Like, yeah, we didn't get lunch.
I didn't know that's where you guys went.
That's
Yeah.
all right, we went at the campfire and had lunch.
Well, they went to the campfire.
Yeah,
I was still like, who ate my Indian taco, right? And Jerry's like, well, Kurt ate 2, and Kurt's like, Jerry ate 3.
Tell you how good the fried rice.
But I mean, but that just tells you how hard they work too. And I can tell you, we toured, all we did was tour that building and we came back and they were eating and back at it. I think maybe a 15-minute break is all they took. And it's commendable.
It was, when we came here with the food, they were just like all over the building, just helping each other. It was awesome.
It was actually probably one of the best team building exercises we had, but none of us want to repeat it.
Right.
Yeah.
But wait, I'm gonna go ad-lib on my board report. So yesterday, our instructional coaches, Callie and Z, put together a training and basically it was what I can see it as, it was just a whole bunch of different systems we can do, right? It's kind of like drinking from the fire hose is what I felt like, right? Or like at one point we're talking about, help me out. I mean, I swear we went to 3 different things and I still didn't know what was going on. But because we hit 3 different things. So we talked about like entrance and exit tickets. We talked about I statements, right? We talked about setting a purpose,
Learning
right?
targets.
Learning targets.
Yeah.
And then, and of course, we got into the EFA, you know what I mean? It just, I mean, there was about 7 or 8 of the things that we have, that they had discussed. And just as a more of a like, hey, I use that, you use that, you use that type of thing. Today, we did more of from what I can gather, is just started talking about kind of systems and things that are working and not working, classroom management type of stuff. And I think today was great because, and actually I was in and out, but I ended up staying because we saw our staff collaboratively working K-12. Like one guy's like, hey, I'm struggling with the cell phone. What's the cell phone policy in the elementary, right? Well, this is what it is. What's yours? Well, it's got kind of this and kind of that, but I like this and I don't like that. And then so I said, do you guys go? Right? Go. You guys have to enforce it. Look, find it. And the thing with the absenteeism too, is like go. And they got the whole afternoon to collaborate. And they collaborated. I mean, just, usually somebody's goofing around. And they weren't. I mean, they were collaborating nonstop for 3 hours. And then afterwards, we had grade levels just sitting and discussing and just being like, how can we bring this back full circle? How can we be a unity? How can we bring our staff back? And it was just flat out awesome. And
Great.
but Z and Callie really set the day up for it. So I just wanted to give kudos to our staff and kudos to our trainers on it because it was great. Unfortunately, we cannot take somebody to where? What's number 4?
Oh, skunk
Meadows.
meadows.
With a
They
can
like
open
it.
tuna.
If they
Yeah. I mean, but it was fun.
Tuna instead of the
Yeah,
baby.
it was fun, right? So the 4th offense is like, we're done. You're going up to Skunk Meadows with a can of tuna. You know what I mean? But it was just kind of fun. And I wanted to see if I caught it, right? When I was reviewing it. So they're all looking at me why do we move that to the 1st offense and we don't need 2, 3, and 4?
Right.
But it was awesome. And it was something that we haven't been able to do as a staff for a very long time. Just sit and just work together and chat.
That's good. I like that.
That's it for my board report, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, except that everybody in that room volunteered to help us move. Right? Yeah. So everybody in the room today volunteered to help the elementary move.
Back into there.
Mhm.
Oh, really?
Many hands make light
I
work.
love that.
Actually, Bonnie volunteered her kids. But, yeah.
Well, when it happens, we'll supply lunch again, okay?
Well, only if we get it
Well, we'll
first.
make more. though.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was cool, right? Because they got to see each other, realize that we're all friends, we're all in it together, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna help you guys.
That's great. Okay, anything else? Okay, move on to superintendent.
There's the photo of the elite K2 down on that one. I don't know if you guys got it. Do you guys have the photos?
It's the okay version.
I have it up. So you see it out here.
Nobody told me which one I needed to.
I did send you the other version.
Oh, it's the okay, got it.
So just see their faces, so they all look at me, Sean.
I thought maybe someone wasn't smiling. I picked up on it. I picked it out. Yeah. Questions for me, that you might have with our moving forward on the art room projects. Arlee Electric was able to get ahead of schedule. They were in there. The ACM is doing abatements. They've been there the last 2 days. I don't know how long they'll be. I think we're fast tracking the paint, and then we have a contract for the tile going in July 21st, I believe is the date. Nope. Completed by June 20th. Completed by June 20th. Painter scheduled for July 21st. Maybe that's how it went. Lots of contracts with that one. Football field lighting has been ordered. Slight delay on tariffs, shipping, whatever. Arlee Electric explored multiple opportunities going in different directions, could find none of them that were feasible. It's an 8-week turnaround from the day that he ordered them, and that was a couple weeks ago when he did the ordering. So, and then he's organizing, this is Trevor Noggle, he's organizing all of the light poles we put in that you guys approved. So hopefully our first night game will be under the lights and not car lit. That's the hope. And then we had 2 additional staff resignations. Monica's on there, and so is Miss Albright. They're moving on to new opportunities. And then, yeah, I mentioned the K2 twice in there because it was impressive. I think I might have only been here for.
Oh, yeah, I should have not looked.
No,
Yeah,
you're
Mr. Beckham did
I
like move a
don't-
whole trailer of tables within an hour.
I brought my 2 children down here and they were just off gallivanting, and I drove around a little bit, but I didn't do much. I am not in this. It was impressive. I remember I was going to grab a table and I had a teacher literally run by me. I was like, what is happening here? So I was like looking backwards. So apparently that's the norm for her, which good on her.
He doesn't walk. Yeah,
Oh,
does not walk.
It was impressive. And I didn't break anything on the way out. Even though I could have, because it was gonna get renovated, but in front of Jerry at one point,
We didn't even think about.
I
it.
about took out-
On the way out.
I about took out the exit light off the ceiling because Brobold was walking in front of me and he had his table propped above his head. And I attempted to do the same, but he saw the light or the exit sign. I did not, and I about took it completely off the ceiling. So,
But it didn't need to be there anyway.
yeah, correct. At least I don't think. So, yeah, maybe it didn't do the difference.
any more questions, comments? Okay, move on to the athletic board report.
Jake is currently in Glasgow or traveling back from Glasgow. He had the 80 meeting over that direction. So, which is pretty stellar considering his contract ended a few days ago and he doesn't start until July 1. So he's scheduling at the moment or in travels.
And are they doing camps, volleyball and football, or what are they?
I know we're doing football camps.
Okay,
Don't know about volleyball and I apologize for it. Okay. But I can let you know.
And then can we get, if there's any open gym opportunities throughout the summer, if we can get those posted properly on website, Facebook, whatever, wherever we advertise everything.
He mentions in his report that the schedules are available on the website. Where on the website would we find those?
Follow up on that as well, because we have multiple postings in
Right.
different spots.
That's right.
I'll clear that up. It's in the books. Lonnie and I chatted about it a week ago. The calendars don't all line on there.
anything else? Arlee Federation Features Report.
Just moving ahead with changes to the CBA, just look forward to getting that finished up.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to approval of claims, payroll and reports.
Motion?
Second.
Anyone here to review it? and look at it?
We are paying building body mine $7,000.
That's
Is that already paid?
So he has submitted his bill for, well,
Is
you
that-
approved his contract.
That's his last payment for his contract?
No,
No.
so he was approved a contract. So yeah, I'm paying him on that contract that you approved.
Oh, we still owe
Monthly.
him money.
Yes, we do.
What is the JMB or JMG conference, hotel for JMG conference, $1,000 on page 8?
Jobs for Montana graduates are, that's Miss Jackson taking students over to state finals.
So you know that, the thing they do like up at the casino where they sell their stuff? It's like a entrepreneur class picnic.
Oh,
That's what it is.
On page 6, what is a Lotus cart supplies?
That's out of
Well,
the
that's
club.
also Mrs. Jackson. She runs a Lotus cart as part of her FCCLA program. That's how they make money.
Oh,
That comes out of club funding.
Yeah.
on page 5, it was Best Western Great Northern Hotel chapter drinks $5. But
They sell the. When they sell the pies during the year, that's part of their fundraising to pay for all of this. This is
Sure.
like a club.
the Wex Bank, this is page 1, voucher listings. What do they do? Is that a logistics company or something?
Wex Bank covers all of your gas and fuel for your district
Okay, yeah.
vehicles and buses.
I see the item.
Yeah.
I thought that was. And then the gravel pit lease, we're showing a negative balance on, like, what is the deal with what is going on with the lease, the gravel lease property?
What do you mean we're showing a negative balance? I
It,
didn't.
it says negative $5,100 right after gravel pit lease revenue, page 4 of
Oh,
statement of revenues.
oh, yeah. Well, you have to look at a statement of revenues backwards. If it's a negative, you got money.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. It's not to confuse you even more, but that's how statement of revenues works. It's in the reverse.
So we currently have a 10-year contract with, I guess it started in 23. So in 23, we signed a contract with Lake County for the gravel. If you guys would like me to go full send on a market analysis of whether or not we're getting the most bang for our buck, I can do that.
Yes.
I remember the whole gravel pit discussion stuff, and I remember them being here at the meeting and not being sure whether or not we were gonna renew the thing, and then there was somebody else that was wanting to do it, or. So we currently are locked into a 10-year contract that we can
We
deny.
review it yearly, I believe is the way it's written,
I
right?
have forwarded because I knew this was coming, I forwarded the contract already off to our legal to see if the language allows for any change. And I feel like at this time, that's probably where we wanna be.
So the income that we were showing from that, is that per year?
You get $17,000 a year and they pay it quarterly.
And
I would like to explore if we're able to get out of that contract, other options, because I think that property and that gravel pit could bring more revenue into our school than what we're getting in that contract.
I agree with that, and I hear from a lot of community members about the noise of the gravel pit. It's just nonstop bang, bang, and I don't think we hear it over here because it's kind of a little amphitheater. It's definitely a churning machine over there.
And they removed their machine 3 weeks ago, I think.
And they had certain plans about it, and they wanted to continue to extract more and all that happened. I'm assuming.
So in the contracts, it was signed over how many acres
Yeah.
we were allowing, the district was allowing, you were allowing them to take, and then there's parameters on there what the angle of the slope has to be, and then when they have to come back in and reclaim the property, all of that's there. They don't have all of the 40 acres. So at the current moment, glancing online, maybe they've done 10. Maybe.
Well, thank you for educating me on all these things.
Anyone else? All in favor to accept the payroll, claim payroll and report?
Hi.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Can we talk about next month's meeting? Yeah.
Next month.
And August too, while we're at it, 'cause that's our big one.
So. I think. It'll be July 8th,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
I'm okay with that one.
and then. August 12th.
Yes. And that's our budget meeting, so I really need y'all at that one.
Can we bump it a week?
Well, you can do whatever you like, but I have to post it in the paper, so we need to make a decision.
Yeah, the 19th. No, I have a training in Helena and I'm gonna be pushing it to get back in time for the meeting on the 12th. So if there's any way we could push it to Tuesday, the 19th.
Is the 19th okay with?
Is there anything that has to
I think
be?
we just have to do it before the 22nd, so I think the 19th will be okay.
Is
Do we
it
want to
work
do a
for-
week later, or do we want to just bump it a day or move it?
Well, the training is, if I only do the one day, it's the 12th, it's a 3-day training. and
Oh,
I have
it's
not
that week.
decided if I'm
Okay, gotcha.
going the whole time yet, so if we could
Okay.
bump it a week, it would work better for me.
Corey, Lonnie?
Yeah, works for me. I just gotta know something. We're in the paper.
I like the week later.
Okay.
Okay, so we have the
Go
19th.
through.
Moving in.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion for adjournment.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
What was she saying? Just.
It was, my dad said he texted you and asked to do something and that she left her phone at home. Yeah, officially. Working phones.
I figured that.
Lonnie, are we turned off?
How funny.
Oh.